It was after Christmas when I was 8 years old. Things had got bad with trouble with my father. My mother was nearing a breakdown and there were just the two of us. I knew she'd been trying to get me into Dr. Bernardo's homes for a few years, but they wouldn't have me because I wasn't a proper orphan. This particular day I came home from school on January 9th, and she came in while I was reading, waiting for my tea, and she said, "Put your coat on, you're going in a home." I never protested because I must have realised the situation was impossible anymore. And so we set off to walk from Almeric Road in Battersea to Swaffield Road in Wandsworth. And when we got to this big door, I realised this was the workhouse. And we went in, and a lady was there and started talking to my mother. She must have been the matron. And then she said, "Come on, Maude, say goodbye to your mum." I put my head down on my chest and I wouldn't look at her because I thought, if I don't say goodbye, she just can't leave me. But she had to go. We were there for about 2 weeks, and then one morning a lady came and she took me on a bus. In those days, they never told you where you were going or why. You just went. At first I thought I was in the country, and then when I turned round, there were these big buildings, and I realised this was going to be my home for the next 4.5 years at least, and it was Norwood Children's Home. And I was taken in, and a big girl was given to take charge of me, and she took me to the sewing room, and they fitted me out with new clothes and a nice thick warm coat. I'd never had such a lovely coat in my life. And then I was taken to the dining hall because all the children had come home from school then, and it was dinner time. Well, we walked in this huge room with 500 children all clattering and eating, and the knives and forks going. And I thought, there won't be enough food for me. But of course there was. One day, when I came home from school in summertime, Dorothy was there and she said, "You've got a visitor." And I said, "Oh, don't be daft." And I went to have a wash. And then Nurse Cook called out, "Harris, you've got a visitor." So she said, "Get dressed and go down and see them." And I thought it must be my mum because she hasn't been all this time, and I thought I hadn't got a mother anymore. And so I went down to where she was waiting for me, and I saw what a shabby, tired woman she looked. I'd never seen her like that. And after 6 months, you look at people in a different way. But we were so pleased to see each other, and I don't think I stopped talking for all the visit, and sang songs for her that I remembered singing when I was at home. You could go out for a day with your parents. I think I'd been there a year before she came to take me out. She came about 9 o'clock to the lodge, and I was sent down to go with her. And we went from West Norwood to Balham, where she had a flat. And it was rather shabby in the flat, but I used to look out of the window watching people go by and pretending that this was my home, I was back home again. It was a strange feeling because you've no toys, no bed, and the house isn't yours. And there wasn't much furniture there anyway, it was poor. She had the chest of drawers, a bed, little table and chairs, and a tin trunk that she brought from Yorkshire. The tin trunk followed me all the rest of my life. Till she died, we had to dispose of it. She took me out to Lyon's tea shop to have a plate of Hovis bread sliced very thinly, and a cake which was brought on a tray, and you picked which cake you liked, which was very posh. And then she took me to Woolworths and we had ice cream and looked around Woolworths and bought an autograph album that I still have. And then she took me to see Mrs. Wigglesworth, a friend of hers, and she had a tomcat called Sammy and he smelt for miles. And she was so proud to introduce me to Mrs. Wigglesworth that I was her daughter, Maude. And then it was time she took me back to the home, and it was a very sad feeling. At night when I got to bed, it was like a feeling of depression used to come over you, wondering how she was and how much had she spent on me. Did she have any money left for herself? One night in bed, Dorothy said, "What's it like to have a mum?" And I laid it on thick. I said, "Well, it's nice," because I realised I had something that somebody else didn't have, because everybody seemed to have stuff that I didn't have, and this time it was my turn. Never realising how cruel it sounded, because she had nobody. One day the nurse came. It was tea time. 9th of June I came home. It was the 5th of June on the Wednesday, and she said, "You're going home on Monday, and have you any clothes of your own?" And I said, "No." And she said, "No, of course you won't. They won't fit you anyway." So I had to pack my bits of things up, and I left my book, Grimm's Fairy Tales, to Ethel, who at the time was in hospital, but she was a very studious girl and she liked that book. And I packed my other things in a little suitcase, and a lady came to take me home, back to Balham. Gradually I settled down, learned my way round London and found I was enjoying life. But then the war started and the Blitz came, and my mother still had relatives here who were writing to say, "Come up here, we're worried about you." So with one way and another, the authorities telling us to get out of London if we could, we decided to come back to Halifax, and life changed completely from then. Psychologically, they knew how to deal with us. They didn't punish us overmuch. And we learned to be responsible and look after the younger ones. So it gave you a sense of responsibility and some confidence to stand on your own feet eventually.